Hey, this is Carrie Hartunian Smith, and you're listening to the 360 Entrepreneur with Yanni Lunga.
This is episode 169, and today we talk about authority building and client value optimization. Here we go.
Welcome to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast, the show for entrepreneurs and small business owners who dream big and want to do bigger. Join some of the world's top entrepreneurs, internet marketers, and best-selling authors as they share their inspiring stories, their struggles, and give actionable tips that will help you build, grow, and promote your online business. Here's your host, Yanni Lunga.
Hey, what's up? Yanni Lunga here. New episode of the 360 Entrepreneur, and today we're gonna learn some of the things we can do to leverage a very powerful marketing and authority building asset. And we also gonna hear about 3 ways to get more customers. So regardless of what you're doing right now, make sure to grab some pen and paper, open Evernote, Word, Pages, whatever you use to take notes, because you're going to get some valuable tips by today's guest. She's an entrepreneur, marketing expert, and I'm talking about Carrie Hartunian Smith. The show notes for today's episode are over at yannilunga.com/episode 169. All right, without further ado, here is the interview with Carrie Hartunian Smith from smartmarketingconsulting.com. Hey everybody, I'm so thrilled about who's here with you and I. She's a marketing consultant, an author, a highly regarded business executive who develops strategies to support accelerated growth in highly competitive industries. She's the co-founder of Smart Marketing Consulting, a company that takes the classic tried and true business practices and incorporates 21st century proven techniques to create a thriving, scalable, repeatable, and profitable business. As I said, I'm excited, and she's here with us, Carrie Hartunian Smith. Carrie, welcome on the show.
Thanks, Jan. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure. And I have to say, you and I were talking for a moment here before the interview, and I know you're fired up, right?
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Okay, so I like that we just dive right into it because we have quite some ground to cover. And I mean, I said you are a marketing consultant, you are a business executive, you help businesses, entrepreneurs really create business that is profitable, repeatable, scalable, that thrives. And I know that often when it comes to entrepreneurs, small business owners, we focus so much on the future, on what's coming our way, what we hope is going to come our way, that we tend to overlook or almost overlook the core, the solid foundation of our business. So, Carrie, my first question to you is, first of all, can you take a minute to tell everybody a little bit more about who you are and what you do? And second of all, if you can spend a moment also to talk about the importance of a solid foundation and kind of what you consider are the core elements or some of the core elements entrepreneurs and small business owners should think about.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, I'll give you a little bit of a background first.
Mm-hmm.
I started my career, if you will, in the direct response industry. So back in 1993, I was part of a media company startup. And what our business plan is really working with advertisers and TV stations and national, local, regional networks, and connecting them so their product could be on air. And we went into radio and we did a little bit of print. And our company grew. We had explosive growth. In the first year, we went from, just a couple of us to 60,000 in revenue a month to finishing that first year with 7 million in revenue. And then each year after that up until 2000, it was huge, until 2007. We were growing by leaps and bounds with revenues in the millions up to, 70, 80, 1 year, 90 million in revenue. We sold that company in 2007. And I was asked to stay on as part of the acquisition. So we were the first of 5 companies. And the company that acquired us kind of pulled me out of the day-to-day, running the sales, the operations, really kind of acting as the COO of the organization, and put me on project base with being part of every acquisition that they were then going to be doing over the next 18 months. So my life changed immensely from going from running this, little mom and pop, I say little, this mom and pop organization of direct response to working with a media conglomerate that was going around buying like-minded media companies. And so I had the opportunity to really be in many different facets of, working on the ad agency side, working with long form, short form. For a year and a half, I was part of building an unwired network. And so my growth in those 5 years was just even more explosive and with knowledge, quite honestly, of understanding media and marketing and all that good stuff. So I decided to leave corporate America in 2012 and kind of said to I left for a consulting job. So it was a very similar consulting job to what I had just been doing in corporate America. And that lasted, about 6 or 7 months. And then I was faced with, okay, so now what am I going to do? Where can I use my talents and my skills and really make impact in the world, if you will? And, I looked at possibly opening up some brick and mortar. I always wanted a coffee shop, looked at some different retail pet locations. And while that was happening, I kept being asked to speak about marketing. And I kept saying, I'm not really a marketer, more business development, operations, I can talk all day long about that. But in any event, there was, about 4 or 5 different panels over about a year's time where I was asked to speak on marketing. And quite honestly, I was shocked at how much I did know about marketing at that time, because that's just not where my mindset was. And along those lines, I was researching, to open up my own brick and mortar. And the one thing that literally would wake me from a dead sleep is, how am I going to compete in the marketplace? How am I going to stand above, especially a coffee shop? I don't know where you are, but there's coffee shops, on every street corner. And it's not just, it's just not coffee shops, but your competition are the gas stations, they're the restaurants, they're, anyone who serves coffee is your competition. And so because of that, I really immersed myself in what I really consider is marketing, and how are you going to get traffic in the door? How am I going to stand above? And I found myself joining a lot of different groups and chats, and I went through a lot of different certifications. And slowly but surely, my business, I didn't open a brick and mortar. As I was going through these certifications and people were coming to me as looking to help to solve their problems, I was able to implement a lot of these strategies and techniques that I was learning to do for my own business, for other people's businesses. And that's how I ended up where I am today. When I left corporate America, I never would have thought I was going to be consulting with clients on, marketing. But that's kind of how my path led me to where I am. So to answer your specific question, as far as, advice or feedback on a solid foundation, the one thing that I would say, there's a lot of different things in opening a business or running a business, not just opening, but running a business. And the one thing that I have really learned over the years is, I think all too often people focus on sales, drilling down the sales. And obviously sales are important. But if you take one step back, what brings in the sales? What brings in the sales is not just a salesperson, but the marketing and what value you're bringing to the table for someone to want to have your product or your service. Right. And, I think if our marketing is drilled in and our message is speaking to the right audience, and what we provide is valuable, it's a good product or it's a good service, really customer or businesses shouldn't really have any issue with meeting their revenue goals because of where we are with technology. People can find you anywhere in the world. So you're just not selling to a small zip code, if you will. You actually have the ability to sell across the world, but there's a lot of key components that you need to make sure that you have in place. So I would say is make sure that you really spend your time understanding your market and honing in on that before you go out and spend a lot of money in trying to capture, your client.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Carrie, thank you for sharing your story with us, telling us a little bit more about kind of how you got where you are today. And you said it, I mean, with technology today, it's so quote unquote easy. I mean, it is has never been so easy as it is today to have or to reach markets that can be literally on the other side of the world. So we have an online business, we can have our potential clients or our ideal clients literally on the other side of the world. And me and you doing this interview, I think is the perfect example of how we can really go beyond borders, beyond continents to do business, to do marketing and these things. And I mean, I like the fact that you talked about the importance of really understanding the market, understanding kind of how people relate to your business or to your product, to your service, to your brand. And I know that that's something you also talk about when you talk about kind of how to position oneself as an expert, how to build authority and these kind of things. So if you look at maybe also, Carrie, can be your own story, can be some of your clients, or even some of today's kind of top entrepreneurs, what would you say are some of the things we should think about and do in order to, number one, position ourselves as experts, and number two, not only that, but also really to make sure that we attract the right people? And I think the two questions are kind of related to each other.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And the latter question is a bigger question, but so, positioning yourself, I think, is one of the biggest struggles people face, whether they realize it or not. And I think all too often people feel like, and I'm going to say the biggest and the best way to position yourself is to get that authority, to get that, I'm going to say, the Kim Kardashian, presence, if you will. Everyone knows Kim Kardashian, right? And people think, oh, well, it's because of her money and it's because, whoever you're looking at, just not her, that they're able to do that. And yeah, that's true. But, really, when you look at positioning yourself, it's all about elevating yourself as an authority. And it doesn't have to be, and this is where I think people get tripped up, is you don't have to be an expert over, I'm going to say, the ocean. You can be an expert over the pond in your backyard. Right. And then once you start to, feel more comfortable with that and the word gets out, then you can go to, a bigger, maybe it's a lake, and then maybe it's, the Mediterranean Sea, and then maybe it's, the Pacific Ocean, if you will. So my point behind that is, don't feel like you have to start big to have that expert status. Become an expert in something in a small area or in a small topic, which then that can feed on and help it grow. It's not something, they say someone had overnight success. Well, it took probably 20 years for that overnight success for somebody, right. And so it's the same thing for us as business owners and entrepreneurs. What I find is that oftentimes when I'm working with clients, they don't realize or they don't think of themselves as an expert in a specific niche or field within the bigger picture of what they're trying to accomplish. So what we do is we hone in on that, and we'll run press releases, we'll do podcasts, we'll see about getting them on radio and or TV, depending upon their budget. One of the tools or techniques that I use with a lot of my clients is books. Books are a great way to get instant credibility and instant authority in your market. And I've worked with some people who are doing books on exterminating. We call him the bug guy.
Right.
And you think, how can you write a book on books? On bugs? Who's going to read that? His target audience wants to read it because of what was put in that book. So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a John Maxwell or, a Seth Godin or someone like that to have a best-selling book and then leverage that for your business. So one technique that has been very successful with my clients is, creating a book. We run it to bestseller status. So not only are you an author, but you're a bestseller. And then we market that, we leverage that. We run the press releases. We get people on podcasts and help that grow for their business.
Yeah. I mean, Carrie, thank you so very much for really giving us a reality check on what being an expert means, because I think that sometimes, with technology, we were saying it's great. It allows us to do a global communication. It allows us to really learn more about other people and, learn more on a personal level. But then at the same time, sometimes we kind of get blindsided. You talked about the overnight success, and sometimes we hear stories we may think are actually overnight successes, or anyways, things that happened relatively quickly, and we're like, oh well, okay, I'm just gonna emulate that person or the steps they took or things like that. But sometimes, first of all, we don't know the entire story. We don't know what happened before that. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes. So I think it's something it's important to keep in mind. And I love the fact that you talked about kind of being an expert is a process. So I think it's important really to double down on that like many other things in business and in life, being an expert isn't any different. It is a process. It is a marathon. And I like the analogy of the body of water. So go from the pond to kind of a lake, to the Mediterranean Sea or any other sea, to the ocean. And I also like the fact that it's important. I mean, even with podcasts, for example, if you are here with Carrie and I, you're hosting a podcast, or maybe you're thinking of starting one, but you've been, well, I'm not really an expert. You are, and you could be an expert who really documents his or her own journey. So it's not that you have to have necessarily a vertical relationship with your audience where you're like, a god or a semi-god who knows everything. But you can say, okay, so these are my 2 cents. This is what I know, and I'm gonna take you with me on my journey. And you mentioned, Carrie, writing a book as a great way, not only a book, but a best-selling book as a great way to build authority. And yeah, I've seen some people doing that, and even people I know personally, and I've seen what that has done for them, especially if they went into writing a book and launching a book with a strategic thinking. So with the kind of process I assume you do with some of your clients. And something, Carrie, I want actually to share with you as well as with everybody else here. And some of you met me. I recently was at Podcast Movement. And for me personally, organizing a virtual summit, so a few months ago, I organized the Podcast Success Summit, really, really reinforced my brand and built a ton of authority, because I came across people who I had no idea who they were. Their face didn't tell me anything. Their name didn't tell me anything. And they were like, you're the summit guy. Oh, yeah. Nice to meet you. Do you mind if I take a picture with you? And from there, we took it from there. So I think that with the example of writing a book that you mentioned, Carrie, or the virtual summit, I think it's important for everybody to understand that you can do it. We said it. It is a process, and it requires, obviously, stepping outside someone's comfort zone and really taking steps. And if we stay on the book that you brought into the picture, Carrie, if maybe there's somebody here with you and I who is actually coincidentally in the process of writing a book, or they've just maybe finished the book, it's ready to go. Do you have any advice on some of the things they can do to hopefully reach out the bestseller status, and also how they can, even if for whatever reason they don't reach the best-selling status, but still how they can leverage their book as a tool to build authority and connect with potential clients?
Sure. Yeah. So, first of all, if you're looking to build your authority and you're committed to do that, it is worth the time in writing a book. If you haven't, whether you've thought about it and you thought, oh my gosh, it's too overwhelming, I have nothing to say, I would say, yes, you do. You just need to sit down with somebody and, step through it, someone who knows how to step through it and get your thoughts on paper. And with where technology is today, people are writing books, faster than ever. And they're not, again, I don't want to confuse, a well-written novel with a marketing tool or marketing technique. And I'm talking about the latter. I'm talking about writing a book that you can use as a marketing tool or marketing technique. So it doesn't have to be a 3-year-long project. It needs to be a good book. It needs to have substance in it. But I think people have this false impression about books take years, books are super expensive. They're not. They can be very cost affordable. And so if you're on the fence, I would come over to the side of really putting a book together because it does so much for you and your brand. Now, for those of you who have already written a book, this is where so many of my clients come to me for this purpose. They write a book, they hear all the hype about it, and then all of a sudden, it didn't do what they thought it was going to do for them. And I use this analogy. It's kind of like a wedding. So, if you're getting married, for anyone who's either already married, or in the process of getting married, there's all that excitement of you get engaged and then you plan the wedding and then there's parties and that's kind of the writing of the book process. Okay. So you're really excited. It's stressful, but it's good. And you're pulling all this stuff together. The book is finally done, okay, and now you're ready to launch it. So that's the wedding day, and it's exciting, it's exhilarating, and everyone's high-fiving you virtually over the internet because you launched it, and you did get bestseller. In this day and age, there's really no reason why we're not hitting bestseller status if you know the process in doing it. And that's the wedding day, and then the next day and the couple days after you launch your book and you get to bestseller status, that's the honeymoon. You're glowing. You see you're a few inches taller, and you're walking with this presence of, if you could see me right now, I'm gesturing like you should be walking, just your head up high and your shoulders back, and you just have this glow. And then you come home from your honeymoon, okay, and then you look at your spouse. Okay, so now your book launch is over, your bestseller status, everyone's done high-fiving you, it's almost like yesterday's news. And you're like, now what? Now what? Well, when you come home from your honeymoon, now you need to work on a relationship with your spouse. It's going to be the same thing with any marketing tool. I'll say that first and foremost, but especially with your book. So how are you going to use that? How are you going to leverage that? First and foremost, you need to make sure you have a great go-to-market strategy. It's not just about the launch, but it's how are you getting people to be interested in your book? When people are interested in your book, are there call to actions inside to get them engaged with your book? So I call it a 3D approach. Although books are a fabulous tool, the reality is, I don't care if you're a millennial to a baby boomer, we're not sitting down and reading books like we used to. We're looking at them on our device and, skimming through the books. And so what's in your book that's going to capture someone's attention to have them opt in to find out more? And it's that whole giving value up front before you ask for the sale. So have your book be an overall package of value, but then almost chop it back up and give it to them in bite sizes in ways that they can take with them. So maybe it's a PDF, maybe it's a checklist, maybe it's a video, maybe it's you explained a story in your book, but you're going to have them opt in so they can experience that story through video. And whether it is an opt-in or not, I'm going to get into the weeds here, but if you use video, then you can, set a pixel and then retarget to them later. So my point is put that go-to-market strategy together, not just for the launch, but for the longevity. Some people's books just have a life cycle of 6 or 9 months, and they're fine with that. Other people write books for the long haul. So I would say plan your marketing around what that long haul looks like, and don't treat it as a silo, but bring it into and augment it into your overall marketing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where to start from, Carrie, because you dropped so many value bombs. Maybe I'm actually gonna start from your last point, because I think it applies really not only to authors or soon-to-be authors, but even to people who are thinking of launching something, which is kind of, how does the thing you want to launch fit into the bigger picture? So is it something that is going to be kind of short term? Is it something that you're going to focus on the long term? And you talked about also the fact of understanding how we consume content today, in this case, written content, and is very important, because, I mean, you talked about your 3D approach and the fact that, kind of give people extra benefits through other senses in a way, or by leveraging also multimedia. So it can be video, it can be audio. I like that. And I mean, you said it, there are definitely steps that can be taken to not only to launch a book, but really to launch a book with a bang and hit the bestseller ranks. We talked about being an author, book marketing in the past, so I'll make sure to link to those episodes in the show notes. And also in the show notes, you're going to find the link to Carrie's site, smartmarketingconsulting.com. You also find the link to her Twitter page at cccarrie7. So if you have questions or you want to give her a virtual high five, it's funny you said that, Carrie, because it's a term I often use. If you want to do any of that, or you simply want to give her a shout out, you can do that on Twitter. And Carrie, there is another thing I want to ask you, actually two quick things. The first one is, we have been talking a little bit about having a book or a best-selling book as a tool to build authority. Mm-hmm. And I know you have on your site, you have the free training, 5 must-have steps to leverage your best-selling book. So people can definitely sign up for that and get all the 5 steps. But would you mind sharing one of those steps here with us?
Yeah, and one of them is to build your platform. Okay. And so by build your platform, I mean, all too often when people do their book, again, they kind of silo it. So have that branding going across everything that you do, have a separate page for your book so you can drive people there to buy it, but make sure it's on if you have a Facebook page, an active Facebook page, make sure it's on your Twitter, if it's an active Twitter, or whatever platform you're using to get your message out there, make sure that it represents it and that it's congruent. All too often I'll see people who forgot to put it on their Twitter banner, or, didn't even think to put it on Facebook. And that happens. We get busy and we forget, some of our assets that we have. But if you're going to do a book, I think it's really important to make sure, again, that you pull it into your everyday marketing the best that you can, and make sure that that's congruent across there. And then another piece of it that I think I know you only asked me for one, but I want to say this one too.
Great.
That people either don't think about or forget about or what have you, is don't forget to promote it, as far as, when you launch it and when it hits bestseller and when you get a great case study about it. It's not, and I like to do that through press releases. And the reason why we use press releases is because you'll be bestseller for a period of time and then you won't. And then no one knows it. There's no proof of it, if you will. But the moment you run a press release on that, you have that as an asset to use forever. And people find it online, especially if you keyword optimize that press release, when people are looking for the solution to solve their problem. And all of a sudden that keyword is in your press release. And then all of a sudden that press release shows up in a search engine. So I see a lot of people doing books and not using that good old fashioned marketing technique of press releases. And that's a huge part of the packages that I put together.
Okay. Carrie, thank you for over delivering, and I love that. Yeah, as I was listening to you talking about the press release, I was just thinking, and then if it's SEO optimized, and then you said it, so I was thinking, great, and and I mean, you touched on a very important point, which is social proof. So there may be people who end up on our site or on our landing page or our sales page who have no idea who we are. Maybe they've seen a tweet being retweeted by somebody else, or somebody mentioned us. So they kind of may have a slight idea of who we are or have no idea. So if we have elements that can reinforce our social proof, the more we have those, the better. And Carrie, to wrap up this fantastic conversation, I want to ask you for 2 more things. The first one is, we talked about some of the things to think about when it comes to the business, some of the foundational elements. We talked about building authority, some of the things, again, to consider, to do. And now a best-selling book, having a book as a strategy to really, or as a tool to reinforce our brand and our authority. And another thing I want to ask you is about how to create a waterfall of cash flow in order to transform clients into raving and loyal fans. I mean, I know that this question alone could have been an entire topic for not only an episode, but a series of episodes. But is there something we can do in order to not only have people become clients, buy something from us, but really become super fans and really to be in a position where they can't wait, number one, to recommend the thing to their friends, colleagues, and family. And number two, also that they are ready for us as soon as we put something out there on the market. They are going to be the people who raise their hand first and going to tell us, Carrie, Jan, I'm here. I want the thing right now.
Yeah, that's a show in and of itself. But let me let me do my best to condense that down. To me, that's what we call the CVO process, and that's the client value optimization process. And if you want to create that waterfall, create those loyal fans, you have to be sure that you're providing value first. And I'm talking good value first. I'm not talking about giving away the farm. I'm not talking about, giving your core offer away for free. But there are tons of things that you probably don't even realize that that you could give to someone for free in advance through a PDF, through a checklist, through a video, through all of these other things that we've already talked about. And then it's impressions. It's reaching them and how often you're reaching them and then what you give them. And, to grow a business or to be in business, there's really 3 ways to do that. It's, increase the amount of customers that you have, go out and get more customers. It's increase your average transaction value per customer. So get the customers that you have spending more, or increase the number of transactions. So offer up something to where people can buy more frequently. And, a lot of times when I talk about that with people, they're like, yeah, but I don't have that. I don't have anything to where they can buy more frequently. And then I'd say, okay, you don't have that today. So let's table that. Let's focus on the first 2 because you definitely have the first 2. And then let's think about what we can add to get that increased buying frequency later. But so to me, that's where, when you asked about the waterfall of cash flow, that's, you want to get your head around those 3 ways to grow your business, and then back into marketing strategies that will support that. And, I see all too often people spend a lot of money to go out and buy new clients, meaning they buy traffic, Facebook ads, YouTube print, whatever the ads are. And then they don't do a great job at, when they bring them into the funnel, nurturing them and continuing to give them value and then bringing them to the next sale. And what I say is not that it's a waste of money, but until you have your funnel, and I'm talking jargon right now, so I don't know if you want me to get into what funnel is, but until you have your funnel buttoned down to where how you're going to bring that person in, giving them the value, selling them something small like a tripwire to get them to say, yes, I trust you, I'll give you money, whether it's $1 or $20 for something small, and then leading them to your core offer and then continuing to sell to them later. That is less, oh gosh, I don't know if this is, I'll just say the word, but it's like less sleazy than, saying, hey, buy my stuff. Don't forget, I come from the direct response world, and in the 80s and 90s, and still to this day, people make jabs about, how the infomercials are kind of a sleazy way to sell. It was hard sometimes for us to get time on TV stations. They wouldn't approve different infomercials because the sale was so in your face. Buy my stuff. I'm awesome. Buy my stuff. And the product wasn't necessarily a great product. But where we are with technology now and where we are with what we are able to do is provide that value up front so they start to know, like, and trust you. And when they spend $1 or $20, between $1 or $20 with you, right around that amount, that's them putting their toe in the water and saying, okay, I'll give you a few of my dollars. Let me see what you're going to perform for me. And then it's easier to progress them up the scale of spending more money with you.
Yeah. Carrie, thank you for sharing the CVO concept with us and you use the word funnel, I'm pretty sure most people are here on the show by now are familiar with the concept, at least let's call it the raw concept of funnel, because we've talked about funnel in the past. I also have the email course on funnel. So I think people are kind of familiar with the concept, but I liked your spin on it and how you talked about the fact that, sometimes you see people investing in paid advertising, for example, and about marketing strategies without really having the funnel in place, or kind of the every single step of the funnel or of the CVO concept you discussed, without not having those super clear and super ready to be implemented and kind of for people to be taken through the funnel. But Carrie, this has been a very, very interesting conversation. Again, I want to say thank you so much for your time, for your expertise here with us. Again, I want to remind everybody, your site, smartmarketingconsulting.com. I mentioned your Twitter at cccarrie7, and then we mentioned also your free training, 5 must-have steps to leverage your best-selling book. And if people would like to connect with you, Carrie, I mentioned Twitter. Is that the best way, or if somebody has a question, is that the best and fastest way to do that, or?
Twitter is fine. If you go to my site, my email address is right up there. I'm quick on email. So either one, whatever's convenient for your audience. And I just wanted to throw out there, I know we touched on the CVO like really, really quick. I mean, usually I can talk about this for about at least 40 minutes. But I do have, if your audience wants to text the word value to 58885. So that's 58885. I have a map there that kind of lays out the CVO process, and it takes you through all the different steps. So, and there's some other things if you go there that also I send over to you, but specifically to this conversation, it has the CVO map, and it shows you the return path, and it shows you, the acceleration through the funnel. I recommend people print that and, put it on their computer and look at it constantly to say, how is my funnel being optimized, and am I taking my client through this process?
I love it. Thank you, Carol. Definitely make sure to add that as well in the show notes, so that regardless of what time it is, what day it is, what month it is, what year it is, if you're here with Carrie and I, you can still take advantage of that and learn more about funnels and about how you can optimize your funnel to grow your business through it. Carrie, again, thank you so much for being here on the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. It's been great. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for having me.
And we are back. Carrie, thank you so much. And you heard it. I mean, there is so much power in having a book. So I want you to really follow Carrie's advice, and regardless of the niche you're in, start to really consider writing a book. And if it's something that you have already been thinking about and you have been putting that on hold for whatever reason, I would like you to reconsider it and really get started with the process, because you heard it is a fantastic tool. First of all, to build authority. And second, if you work with clients, and obviously if you're a business person, you do, really think about some of the things Carrie shared here with us, so that you can really optimize the value you provide to clients. You can really maximize their own experience with your business, with your brand, with your products and services. This is it for today. Once again, make sure to go to the show notes page over at yanilunga.com/episode 169. And you heard Carrie say this. You can text the word value to 58885. So once again, text the word value to 58885, and you're going to get access to the client value optimization process map. Again, links to everything in the show notes at yanilunga.com/episode 169. This is it for today. Like always, I want to thank you for your support and for tuning in to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast. It means the world to me. Take care.
thank you for listening to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast. For more tips and tools, head over to www.janilunga.com.